honoring a legend in Cincinnati radio.
He's very inspirational to me. Thank you, Lincoln. Keep it going, man.
Lincoln Ware's voice and passion for our community, filling the airwaves for half a century.
For the last 50 years, Lincoln Ware has been the voice of a generation. Lincoln Ware has brought the community together and, most importantly, created a town hall, giving people who have too often been overlooked or discarded a voice.
Celebrating Lincoln Ware on this edition of Let's Talk Cincy. From WLWT, this is Let's Talk Cincy, presented by Western and Southern Financial Group. Put our financial strength behind you.
Freedom of speech is a cornerstone of our democracy, but for decades before social media, widely expressing your opinions was often difficult. Hello, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller, and welcome to Let's Talk Cincy. You know, for 50 years and still counting, Cincinnati radio host Lincoln Ware is giving his listeners an outlet to say what is on your mind. Through times of joy and also turbulence, Lincoln is the voice of reason and assurance. As Ashley Kirkland tells us, Cincinnati recently honored Lincoln by giving Glenwood Avenue the secondary name Lincoln Ware Way.
There aren't many people who can get a crowd out like this. From Mayor Aftab Puraval to funk legend Bootsy Collins.
Lincoln Ware. Let's give him a nice round of applause, will they?
A standing ovation for the man who changed the voice and face of radio in our city.
50 years in radio, man. That's absolutely amazing.
I want to thank everybody, and I tell you, I've been around 50 years, but it's not possible unless you have people following you. In radio, you need people following you, and there's been some people who have followed me for 50 years.
He played good music to the people. He had call-ins for the people to express themselves and the problems that was going through the city, and they just needed to get some steam off. Lincoln Ware was always there. That mother was always there.
Hopefully, I've had a voice, an outlet for people to vent, for people to get information, and you need the information that's out there. There's so much going on in the world today.
He wasn't just a disc jockey. He was and still is a first responder for all the people. Yes. And he made us feel a little more equal.
How about that, huh? Wow, I thought we were going to have to push the button on Bootsy Collins there. No. Welcome to Let's Talk Cincy.
Hey, thank you, Curtis. It's good to be here.
You and I have known each other for 30-plus years, and I am so happy for you. Congratulations. Let's talk about, you mentioned somewhat in that story that Ashley did about what you're feeling to have a street named after you.
I never could imagine that this would ever happen. You know, I figure, okay, anybody gets a street named after them, they're you know, you normally passed on and gone, and you know, you have to really, you know, do something great. And I guess, you know, being in radio 50 years, I guess, you know, they say I was deserving of it, and man, I'm humbled by it.
Yeah, you know, you and I both knew Ernie Waits.
Oh, yes.
Who his longevity in television and radio, you know, was 50, 60 years. Mm-hmm. But you have just been on the radio constantly.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Waits did not. He was on and off, but you've been on the radio.
Yeah, and you know, I've been fired twice. You know, they say you haven't been in radio unless you've been fired. You know, that's the thing they say, you know. And when I wasn't on full time, I was doing part-time work and, you know, on the weekends and things like that. So I've always been, you know, in radio for the past 50 years in some form or fashion.
Yeah. How did you learn about the street, the renaming of the street?
Well, my wife and Jan Michelle and Alicia Reese had talked about it, and Jan Michelle got the ball rolling, and, you know, when I knew anything, they were saying, we're planning this, and I said, okay. My wife started the whole ball rolling.
And to do it on Glenwood.
Oh, Glenwood, I mean, that means a lot. Yeah, I mean, WCIN is where I started, and Glenwood Avenue was a popular spot for the radio station. We used to have contests where people call in and win tickets. We used to have people drive up to the station to win tickets. And I mean, it was just a great place. Kids used to play football out in front of the station. We used to hand out 45s and things to the kids. So, I mean, it's almost like a community center.
Yeah, and times were different then,
yes.
You know, because we know social media now. We know, television has obviously always been there, but radio, because it was and still is very immediate in
yes.
terms of information, is a powerful source.
And yeah, people depended on radio, back in the 70s to get all the information. Even in the 60s, before I started there, radio was, any protest or anything like that, they depended on the DJ to get them the information on where the protest would be.
Yeah, you mentioned WCIN. We're going to take a break, and I wanted to go back to those days of WCIN. I got a chance to work there for a few years and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that when we come back.
Dad, I am so proud of you. It's just, this year has just been crazy with all of the celebrations and excitement, and we're nearing to the end, and the love that you all have for my dad, it oozes out. And I mean, he's just dad to me. I call him, we make fun of him, we tease him all the time about the silly things we do, but you all never get to see. And just thank you for letting us share him with you for all these years.
How about that, huh?
Oh, that's Tamiko.
That's your daughter?
That's my daughter, Tamiko.
They keep you in line.
She's more popular than I am. I mean, more people know her than they know me.
That might be true. Hey, you were talking about WCIN radio, and folks here in Cincinnati know its history. At one point, it was the second oldest black radio station in the country. Tell me about those early days at CIN.
Okay, I worked there 3 different times. Okay, the first time that I worked there, those early days, they were great. People like James Brown would stop by on occasion and try to push his songs, and people like Bootsy would ring the back doorbell, wanting to do commercials for their group. It was just. It was, like I said before, it was like a community center. I mean, nowadays, it's a lot different than it was back then. And people relied on the radio more back then than they do now. Social media, Facebook, it's all right there for them instantly.
Yeah. Tell me about our friend, the late Everett Quirk.
Oh.
And what he meant to you and your start in radio.
Oh, yeah. Well, I worked there, and then I met him when I was doing a remote broadcast. I met Quirk, and I want to do this. He was just saying, I want to do this. Who do I talk to? So I told him who to talk to, and he bugged them to death until they finally put him on the weekends, hired him part-time, and, he became full-time, and he made a big name for himself during his time at WCIN.
Yeah, that he did. We're seeing a picture of him. Your friendship went beyond the radio, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was in my wedding and the whole bit, and we stayed in touch even after he got out of radio. I was still in radio. We stayed in touch, and he kept all the WCIN memorabilia, and it was just it was a great friendship.
You were saying how different it is today than it was back then, because you said Bootsy would press the
people could come up to the doorbell,
and that's so true.
Yeah,
I mean, I even came over to the station a couple of times and just sat around, and I remember there was someone who would do a game or something, but it was just a community spot.
Yeah, and one of your old girlfriends used to work there too, I believe.
See, that's the problem when you interview someone who knows you too.
I couldn't resist.
I know you couldn't. All right. Wait until you see what I have to ask you in the next segment.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it was just a good place to be, fun place to be. Everybody would stop by And like I said, all the artists that came to town, they would stop by and, you know, just sit around and talk. It was great. One of my great interviews, George Jefferson, Sherman Hemsley, came to the station one time. I mean, you know, and I love that guy. He's a great guy.
And we'll talk about this segment and next segment, about some of the interviews. You mentioned Sherman Hemsley.
Yeah.
Mention some of the other.
Johnny Cochran.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, it was right after the O.J. trial. He wrote a book, and he was coming through town to, you know, push his book. He stopped by the station, and man, he was just a guy that, you know, you would think he wouldn't be friendly and warm. Just a warm, friendly guy.
Right. Well, and everybody made it a point to stop by.
Oh, yes.
And I guess in some markets, they're still doing that. But like you said, if Johnny Cochran or somebody else came to Cincinnati, they made it a point.
They made it a point to stop by. You know, the Jesse Jacksons, the people like that. They made it a point to stop by.
Right. All right, we're going to take a break. Maybe we'll take this break a little bit longer based on some of the stuff he said. We'll be back in a moment.
I must admit, when they told me that they were naming a street after my dad, I was like, wow, that's a pretty big honor for a guy who can't even remember where he left his car keys half the time. But, you know, here we are, and this is very well deserved. Growing up with a radio host as a father was definitely a very unique experience, to say the least. I believe my dad is the reason why all of my report cards said I talk too much, and why now I have such a love for music today.
How about that? Huh? That's your other daughter.
That's my youngest daughter, yes, Tia.
Have you found your keys?
Oh, yeah, I'm always looking for them. You know, where are my keys?
We were talking about how the radio, especially in the African-American community, I think some people might not truly. I grew up listening to a station in Pittsburgh, WAMO radio, and it was the source. So here in Cincinnati, obviously CIN was that source. You move over to the Buzz.
Yeah.
And that's where you were when the riots occurred in 2001.
Yes. And that was another case where people listened to the radio to find out what was going on. Even there was another TV station that was monitoring me, and I guess I was out in front of a store they called Devereaux's back then. People were looting Devereaux's, and I was standing right across the street describing what was going on over the radio. They heard me. They came down there. They caught a lot of it on their cameras. But people listened to the radio to find out where the police were, what was going on, what they were doing, where were they protesting, where the fires were. It was quite an interesting opening into the Buzz radio. We had just gone on the air. Yeah, just had started, yes.
What type of feedback did you get from city leaders in terms of the information you were putting out and, you know, the back and forth? I guess they were monitoring that pretty closely.
Yes, and they were staying in touch with the station managers, making sure we didn't incite the riots, you know, just make sure they don't incite people and, you know, tell people to be cool and keep calm, you know. That's what they were pretty much feeding to the general managers, and they were feeding to us.
Yeah. So what would you say has caused you or allowed you to have this longevity?
You know, first, I don't think anybody could do that nowadays, to stay in the same city for 50 years. That would be kind of hard to do, be on radio. I just love radio, the radio bug. Even when I was in the Marine Corps, I was doing radio on the aircraft carrier. So it's always been in my blood. And I guess once it really gets in your blood, you always want to be around it. And I didn't want to leave the city.
Right. Because you easily could have.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, so I worked at 4 or 5 different stations in the city to be able to stay that long.
And I should also note that, tell them about the Marconi Award.
Okay, I'm up for the Marconi. I think it's the 25th of October. This is the first time I've been up for it. That's like the Oscars of radio. So you don't know until that night, until you're there. So I got my fingers crossed. I don't know. You know, I'm up against some stiff competition in Miami and some other cities around. So it's tough to win. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and this is, for folks who don't know, this is a national award, and it's basically pitting you against all other radio personalities around the country.
With cities this size, yes. Mm-hmm.
Who did you listen to as you were growing up?
Oh, boy, I listened to a guy named Jimmy Wonder, James Alexander. I listened to a guy named Bob Hudson, who had a grandpa. He had, you know, he was one of these guys that had a sidekick, and he was the sidekick, but he would change his voice.
Right.
His name was Bob Hudson. I listened to Bob Lewis, Bob Long, people like that as I was growing up.
And then get a chance to meet some of these people.
Yeah, got it. And Bob Long hired me, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been.
I mentioned our friend Ernie Waits earlier. Tell me your memories of him. And he probably did you like he did me, would call at any time of the day or night.
Any time, day or night, he would call, and he would tell you, you know, well, you know, I listened to you the other day, and you said this, and you said, now what you should have said was this. You know, he knew the history of Cincinnati better than anybody that I could ever run across. He could tell you the history on why it happened and when it happened. He was just a great guy. I hated to lose him.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because a lot of things that he said 20 some years ago, I'm starting to see now very clearly.
Yes.
And it's always, I think what he would say about what's occurring in the current
he'd have a whole lot to say about it. Let me tell you, the Kenyon Bar area and things like that. He could give you a history lesson on that.
Is it difficult, and I know people ask me this, is it difficult to stay in the middle? Because I know, and you've taken positions, and you have a little bit more flexibility than
the journalists would.
But you try to stay in the middle.
I try. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I get lured into one side or the other. Right. I'm trying to stay in the middle on this railroad issue here. Yeah. That seems to be the only thing everybody wants to talk about nowadays. Should we sell the railroad? I'm trying to stay in the middle, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. You've had an interesting career. Anybody you think you would want to interview?
Oh, man, I tell you. I would like to interview Barack Obama in the studio. I've interviewed him on the phone, but I would like to have him actually in the studio. Oprah would be another one I'd like to interview, you know.
Okay. You know, I'm available if you
well, you know, Curtis Fuller is always welcome on the show.
And I've been on his show
several
times. All right, we have one more segment. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, there's some history here. I came down the street years ago, like maybe 46 years ago, and I rang the doorbell right here at WCIN, and Lincoln opened the door, and of course I introduced myself, so I actually found him. And so when he saw me, he said, "Oh, that is my soulmate." So we were married. So this is the street that Lincoln and I met on. And so this is Lincoln and Sharon Way.
That's right. She's the boss.
Right, there you go.
You guys have been married, Sharon, and you've been married for 45 years.
Yes.
And I didn't know that story.
You did? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I met her. She came, she said, you know, I just like listening to you. I just wanted to meet you, you know.
I need to put a doorbell on. Oh, my goodness. So much we can talk about. Let's talk about something current. This is the Black Music Walk of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
Because while Alicia has been the front person, you have been right by her side.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, a lot of the artists, you know, she was just a little girl, you know, when they were putting out songs and things like that. So, you know, I help her a lot with that. But she's been the driver behind that whole Black Music Walk of Fame here in Cincinnati. She's been the driver behind that.
I mean, really amazing. You know, it helps that she's on the Board of County Commission.
Yes.
But the fact that she's been able to really make this happen in a short amount of time.
That was huge. That was huge, definitely.
The other thing that is so associated with you is this health issue. I mean, you focused on health before a lot of people were focusing on it, telling people to get up and move. The Lincoln Ware Walking Club.
That's right. We've been around 23 years, as a matter of fact. And we had our last walk last Saturday, and I'm glad because the weather, Saturday is cool, kind of cool. But yeah, we've been around 23 years. We walk every Saturday out in Winton Woods, normally from June until to the end of September. And we got a lot of people coming out there and walk. We have about at the start of the season, we have like 300 or more people out every Saturday walking. It sort of dwindles down as we go along, But yeah, it's a great thing to do, and I enjoy people coming out and exercising.
And what made you come up with this? What made you say, let's do this and try to get people engaged?
The Tom Joyner Morning Show had been doing a little nationwide walk. He was trying to get people to get together around the nation and walk. And I just picked it up from Tom Joyner.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much longer?
Oh, man,
I know people have asked you that.
They've asked me that, and maybe another year or so. I feel good now, as long as I wake up in the morning and say, I'm ready to go to work, I'm okay doing this,
Still having fun.
Still having fun. When the fun stops, then I guess I'll stop. But right now, I'm having fun, and there's a lot to talk about,
Well, this next year, you're going to have a lot to talk about.
It'll be easy to work.
Has that been difficult in this political climate that we've had the past few years?
Oh, it's been so easy. I mean, so many people, everybody likes someone or they hate someone, and, they've got a whole story behind why they shouldn't be elected. And it's made my job so much easier. So I enjoy it. I enjoy the politics behind all this stuff, the local and national.
As we wrap things up, I mean, I know that you've thanked people at the event, but what do you say to, Cincinnati?
I just thank Cincinnati for sticking with me for 50 years. I run into people who say they listened to me when they were growing up, when they were in high school or elementary school. I came by the school to play music or something. Yeah. And when people stop me and say that, it just makes me feel so good that they still recognize me, they still listen to me, and they have their kids listening to me. So that right there says it all. Cincinnati has been behind me the entire 50 years, and without them, I wouldn't be around here, that's for sure.
Well, we all appreciate the voice of Lincoln Ware that we listen to all the time, and congratulations again.
And thank you, Curtis. It's a pleasure, it's an honor for you to invite me on your show here, man. I appreciate it.
You can come back next week. Just don't tell all those stories.
Yes. I got many stories on Curtis.
All right, that's all the time we have for you now. I'm Curtis Fuller. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk Cincy.